live. Look at that.
That is beautiful.
That's from circa 1984.
Here we are live, guys, live on the Metal Voice. And what a great group of people we have to talk about one of the greatest bands out there. Alan, what do we got?
We got our good buddy from the West Coast, Neil Turbin. And we got Thom Hazaert.
Look at that.
That is beautiful. From the Midwest coast, right here.
There you go.
Tom, what state are you in?
I'm in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Nice.
State of constant confusion.
It's snowing there.
That's right. And it's not. It's like 70 degrees outside. I have my air conditioners on. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, we had the same
very
thing
warm
here
yeah,
on the East Coast. So, and of course, we're going to talk about Power Up, AC/DC's new release.
What is this? November 13th, Alan. November 13th, Power Up. This is their, can you believe it? Their 17th studio album. Of course, 18 if you include the one that was released in Australia back in the day, the first one. All right. So the sad thing about this, right, Alan, is Phil Rudd is there. Of course, Brian's
there.
That's
not sad. That's a good thing, Jim.
Sorry. Let me rephrase that. The sad thing is Malcolm is not part of this album.
Yeah. That is sad.
Yeah.
Well, he is kind of part of it. So his songs are part of it.
Yeah.
It's a tribute to Malcolm.
What's happening,
Right.
Tommy?
Hi, Neil. How you doing, buddy?
Good to see you, man.
I know it's been a while. Look what I'm wearing. Look what I'm wearing.
We got to come out to Green Bay so we can get a suntan. It's raining out here.
I know. It's
You know I'm wearing this? Because Anvil opened up for AC/DC in Toronto at the stadium.
I'm wearing this because I'm always wearing this like 24 hours a day. And it's not even because Neil's here. I'm literally just this anthrax. It's almost permanently affixed to my body at this point, I think.
All right.
So
So I don't know who wants to start.
Here's what I got.
Oh, Neil, you're bleeding.
If you want Bond.
You want some?
Oh, that's great. That's so great. Before we get on this, let me just plug. So we just did our new Ellison record, No Cover, and we actually did Riff Raff with me and Jason McMaster do the vocals on it. Jason, for the record, was born to be Bon Scott. Like, he's so amazing at doing Bond era AC/DC stuff. And it's funny because I sang it originally and it sounded like Brian Johnson, and then he sang it and it sounded like Bond. I'm like, we're just going to use Jason's lead vocals. So, but it turned out amazing, and that actually came out on Friday, so you can hear it on all the digital outlets. And it's on the video's coming out next Friday, and our record No Cover, which is ironically all covers, comes out next Friday.
There you go. Good.
For those of you who don't know,
Congratulations.
Thom is the lead singer of Dave Elvison's solo band.
I am.
As well as the kingpin in the Ellison Empire.
That's what they tell me.
Alan, you want to start? Who wants to start here? Who wants to start?
All right, look, let's get right into it then. This is like Back in Black was a tribute to Bond. Angus says this is a tribute to his may he rest in peace deceased brother Malcolm. And it's let's start off with Realize, the first song on the album.
All right. I mean, how's this? Why don't we do this? Why don't we just give our overall impression, then we'll tackle each song?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Overall impression, AC/DC, Alan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's AC/DC, right? I mean,
and we're done.
Yeah. I'm glad Phil's back on drums. He's my favorite drummer, one of my favorites of all times. You got the cymbal crashes that he's so known for. It's nice to hear them again.
Yeah.
And you got Cliff, who's really shining on this album. I'm glad they got Cliff a little bit more in the forefront and letting him do a little bit more than what he usually does on this. So I thought that was a nice. The rhythm section is strong as ever, man.
All right, Thom.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it really. I mean, look, to be honest, I wasn't a huge fan of Stiff Upper Lip and some of the kind of last studio records. I mean, even conceptually, I wasn't really a fan of. And then I really like this. I mean, look, it feels very classic AC/DC, but it feels a bit more of a return to form as far as. I mean, look, it's musically very AC/DC. It's on point. Brian's voice sounds amazing. Lyrically, I think it's really cool. I mean, look, it is. It really is a classic AC/DC record, man. And I was super excited to hear it.
All right, Neil.
Yeah, I put some time into listening to it, and just to kind of digest it, so I can go into detail on the songs. But I just want to say that it's a really fun record. I think it's got the AC/DC stamp on it, the sound that everyone expects, like Thom was talking about. It sounds like AC/DC earlier. And, just the overall impression that I have is I think the fans are going to really love it. I mean, I think during this Black Plague that has been going on, I think it's a great thing for a band like AC/DC to put out an album. And also, you know, AC/DC we thought was maybe no more after, you know, after Brian was having some issues with his hearing. And, you know, of course, Malcolm passed away, which is, you know, a core writer, core member, core
fan. That's hard to come back from. I mean, two of the main guys. I mean, Brian, you didn't know if he could sing again, and you know, I mean, again, that's a hard thing to come back from. Two of the core guys in the band, you know, one passing away and one having a really serious health impediment that impedes him doing what he does in the band. I mean, that's a lot to come back from.
Cliff was retired.
Yeah.
Phil had legal problems.
Phil had some issues, but
yeah, so
yeah, Phil. Let me just say, as a little abject side note, am I the only one? I actually loved the Axl Rose, the Axl DC, man. I thought he did a killer job singing those songs. I thought he did a great job. It was fun, man. You know what I mean? Look, I'd rather have Brian back and have the band making a killer record. But look, for one cool, fun, little weird thing to hear Axl Rose sing, and I'm a huge Guns N' Roses, hearing Axl Rose sing AC/DC, it was kind of cool. I liked it. So, sorry.
Well, I agree with you. Like, and to sort of replace him in a show and in a situation, yes.
Yeah. Yes.
But if he was to record, I would just like toss all my AC/DC albums. I just get. So,
I think it was cool of Axl to help out his friends.
Yeah, exactly.
And help out AC/DC. But, you know, if he was to be part of the band, it's like, you know, there's a lot of, we could probably have a whole show and discuss like two different bands kind of melding together that don't belong together.
Yeah.
I mean, Axl and AC/DC, it's two different things. And
I didn't ever see that as happening or even being like part of the plan. I think it was just kind of, now looking at it in retrospect with everything that's happened, it was just kind of, look, they had this moment, let's get him to fill in and do this live tour. And it was fun, man. I wish I could have seen it, honestly. I didn't. I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube. I thought he killed the songs. I thought he sounded great and whatever. But yeah, no, I definitely would have never been like, hey, let's let Axl be the singer in AC/DC. New.
Okay, the last two albums, Alan, was this better than the last two albums? This new album, is it better?
Yeah, I'm like Thom, a huge AC/DC fan since, you know, 81. And it just, the last album, it's what I call stop and go riffs. You know, it's fine if you have a riff like Back in Black or Highway to Hell, but man, every song is like, you know, this blue da-da-da, stop, da-da-da. So that was really driving me nuts in a few, you know, going back, dare I say, back to Ball Breaker even.
Yeah.
So I'm with Thom 100% on that. But this album, even though there is 12 songs, it sounds like it's a 36-minute album, like the good old days, where the other ones sound like there's a little bit of filler, like they had to get to a certain amount of minutes. This time they cut it back, and there's more quality, I find, Jim.
Yeah, I think all the AC/DC records, and that was kind of my problem with the last few with Black Ice and Rock or Bust. And again, exactly, going back to Ball Breaker even, it just felt like there was a lot of filler, and some of it was kind of phoned in. Like, you listen to even Fly on the Wall, or obviously Back in Black. But, you know, for those about all those records, like, and even the Bond era records, man, front to back, you just put those records on and let them play, and it was just 40 minutes of awesomeness. There was no filler. Like, literally, I can't think any of the 70s to mid 80s AC/DC records, I can't think of a filler song, really. You know what I mean? Front to back, they're just masterpieces, and it feels like they really put the time into each song. Like, every song on this record feels like it's its own song, and it has its defining moments. I mean, sure, there's some similarities. AC/DC does what they do, and it sounds like AC/DC, but it feels like they put way more effort and energy into these songs and into kind of, you know, again, to me, it was kind of like Megadeth with Dystopia. It's like a return to form, and I really kind of felt like this is too.
A note here, Angus Young said that there is actually no playing riffs by Malcolm Young. He hasn't actually contributed, we'll call it physically, to the album, but the riffs, the ideas, and the music is there from Malcolm and Angus that he wrote together. So it's a side note.
Yeah, Jimmy, I wanted to say also, when we were talking about, you know, just to backtrack one little rewind regarding, you know, the members of AC/DC and how everything kind of seemed like it was falling apart there. I mean, if you look at a band like Led Zeppelin, who everybody loves, you know, they didn't get back together. So I think it's a big step for rock and roll and for AC/DC to bring it back, you know, and I respect them greatly for that. And, you know, I think they've put out a really, you know, it's fortified with AC/DC sounds and, you know, all the things that people love about AC/DC. So I think that's really the overtone of the album. But to get more deeper into it, we can get into that. But I think it's, you know, if you were to look at the catalog, as Thom was saying, you know, the 70s and, you know, having some of the albums where, you know, front to back, you know, cover to cover, it's just unbelievable. I think it's a hard thing to live up to. And, you know, we're not talking about yesterday. We're talking about a long time ago yesterday. We're talking, you know, 40 years, you know, they're 50 years. I mean, their career is in the early 70s.
Staggering.
So, yeah, it's really hard to compete with It's a Long Way to the Top or High Voltage or Highway to Hell or even Back in Black. I mean, front to back, the whole album, every song is a winner. So I think what you're working with now is, you know, people have different lives. You know, you know, not everybody is a Picasso for their whole life. I mean, Picasso may not have even been that his whole life. You know, it's, in other words, there's a time where, you know, Jimi Hendrix, there's a time frame. Jimmy did everything in 3 years. Yeah. You know, it's really hard to, you know, imagine a span of 50 years and trying to come
maintaining that standard for 50 years.
Yeah, you gotta,
not an easy thing to do.
And raise it, and people's expectations now with technology and the internet and all that, they expect, you know, oh, the last album was great, but we expect mega great, you know.
Yeah. All right.
Well, go back to what Neil said. I just want to add to what Neil said before. We need this AC/DC album at this time.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, and that's a great point. I mean, I didn't realize until I was listening to it. It's like, yeah, hey, I feel a lot better today than I did yesterday. You know what I mean? AC/DC always brings that energy to whatever you're doing. So it's a great time.
Well, and the other thing too is with people passing away. I mean, look, we you know, I think me and Jimmy maybe talked about this in one of the last things we did, but you know, we're at this point where we're kind of facing the mortality of a lot of our heroes, and a lot of those bands don't exist anymore. Like Motorhead, man, they're all gone. You know, there is no more Motorhead. There is no, you know, I mean, we're going to get to that point where we're facing the mortality of our heroes. So to hear another AC/DC record that sounds like AC/DC and really brings them back to, I mean, again, it's a comfort. It's like comfort food, man. It's like, holy shit, there's a new AC/DC record and it sounds like fucking AC/DC, you know?
And I think that's what people should appreciate, instead of, oh, well, you know, I like this one, but I don't like as much as that one, or I like this one. It's like, well, you may not get to say that too many more times. You know, in other words, is there another record after this? Who knows? But I think it's great that AC/DC did this. And I think it's great that bands such as AC/DC, I mean, they just came out with a big release for Thin Lizzy. I don't know if you guys are aware of the was it a 6 CD and DVD set. So it's got a lot of, you know, unheard.
It's a lot of listening. It's a lot of listening there.
Unreleased stuff, but for the fans of these bands, I mean, this is amazing. This is like Christmas has come early, you know.
Alan, you were talking.
Neil just made my day. I didn't realize Thin Lizzy had this release. This is
rock legend. Yeah,
it's exactly what I need for Christmas, man.
Okay, now the track list, Alan. I know you start off with the track list, like Realize, Rejection, Shot in the Dark, Through the Mist of Time. I think those 4 tracks are like, they're stoppers. They're just you know, like right away, like those are great tracks and the production's good. It's classic AC/DC. Is it as memorable as Thunderstruck or, you know, You Shook Me All Night Long? No, but there's still some good melodies and some good hooks and toe tapping.
Look, what AC/DC has always done, going back to Blow Up Your Video, right? Let's get the two songs that we get on the radio, right? They had Heat Seeker and It's a Long Way to the rock and roll.
That's the way I like to rock and roll.
That's the way I like to rock and roll. And that's what, you know, Runaway Train and recent albums, you know. So this Realize is a great strong opener, upbeat. It's got a little kind of a groove, a swing to it. And that's what they do best, right? Let's get out the first song and set the tone for the rest of the album. Does it maintain? That's for us to discuss today. So,
yeah, I mean,
I think. Go ahead, Jim.
Were there any weak tracks on this album? Like really, like, oh, geez, why? At one point, I'm thinking maybe they should have brought in a sort of an external writer. And I know this is something I usually don't say, but I thought maybe an external sort of songwriter just to give them a little more melody.
It could have shaken things up a little bit.
You know what I'm saying? Like, usually I'm a purist. I'm a purist of purists, you know? But I think they could have used someone just to help them make sure they get a 10 out of 10. You know what I'm saying? Whereas there was, Kick You When You're Down, Wild Reputation, and No Man's Land. It was kind of like, okay, I've heard this before 1,000 times. It didn't work back on Ball Breaker, and it's not working on now. So that's
well, and to be fair, I don't know who produced this record. If they did it, I assume at this point they probably do it themselves. But I mean, look,
Brendan O'Brien.
Did Brendan O'Brien do it? Okay. No, I mean, again, I it's hard. As a producer myself, walking, when AC/DC, when Mutt Lange did Back in Black, is probably a pretty different thing. Now there's an expectation for AC/DC. As a producer, you're kind of damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Because if you walk in to produce an AC/DC record and you're Brendan O'Brien, who's done Pearl Jam and a lot of huge records, but when you walk in, your hands are kind of tied because you can't really push the envelope too far. And they're probably, I don't know the guys in AC/DC, so I can't speak to it, but you can imagine at 50 years into their career, they're probably not that open to suggestion. They know what they do and they do what they do. So it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't thing. I mean, I could probably say that Back in Black wouldn't have been the record it was without the producer they had, who was probably very integral to that recording. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a weird thing, even being the producer on this record, because it's like, what do you do? How do you, take AC/DC out of their comfort zone? That is basically what they created, and it's been that for 50 years, And
I'd like to add to that if I can, because that's one of the points I want to bring up. No disrespect to Rick Rubin or Bruce Fairbairn or Brendan O'Brien. Like you said, he's done it all. But no album ever sounded as good as the Mutt Lange 3 albums that Mutt Lange produced. You listen to the backing vocals on this album, and they sound thin. They don't sound, and I don't think Malcolm had the greatest voice in the world, and that's the reason why they sound a little thin. I think it's just no producer was able to get those big, loud, chanting vocals that they had to listen to stuff going back to Highway.
But that's what Mutt Lange did. I mean, that's what Mutt Lange does. Exactly. That's literally his thing, I mean, it's just, look at the records Mutt Lange did. I mean, groundbreaking. Def Leppard, AC/DC, every band, even Shania Twain. But I mean, every band he did, he basically took that band and molded them to something just on a whole other level of what they were. And I don't feel like Brendan O'Brien's that producer. I think he's great at just capturing what a band does. And I'm sure he did great things for Pearl Jam or whatever. I just feel like this might be a little out of his element when you just walk into that and it's like, what do you do? I mean, when you're Brendan O'Brien producing an HD's record, you're basically turning knobs and hitting record. You know what I mean? I don't feel like he had a lot of input. I mean, again, it doesn't seem to me like there was a producer pushing them out of their comfort zone at all. I bet you this is what he did. And it's kind of like what I know producers do with Megadeth. And they kind of go, here, go back. What Brendan O'Brien probably did is he said, hey, go back and listen to Back in Black. Go back and listen to, and I noticed there's more similarity on this record to some of the older records. And if anything, that's probably what he did. He kind of steered them back towards their classic material and tried to make it more in line with that. As a producer, producing a legacy band with a career and a sound that's so defined, that's really your only option. Here, go back and listen, go. And it's kind of, Rick Rubin does the same thing when he kind of does these later records with these career legacy bands. They probably say, go back and listen to Back in Black and Flick of the Switch and some of the older records. And to me, that's the thing that's a little different on this record than the last few. I think there's a little more variety in the riffs, and I think there's a little more of a return to the style of those records and the style of riffs and songs that were on those records,
Neil, how do you sing? And as a singer, as a professional singer that you are, how do you sing when you're deaf, like Brian Johnson?
Well,
he's 74 years old.
How do you walk when your legs are broken?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't. You drag. So in other words, you got to have your shit working. Otherwise, you can't hear. I mean, it's impossible to, you'd have to have some kind of technology. He had to heal up. It's just that simple. I mean, something like that.
One thing to that, and I don't know if the hearing loss is still persistent. I mean, look, part of singing, part of pitch isn't necessarily hearing, it's a vibration too. So you know what I mean? I think you could figure out a way to, look, Rick Allen figured out how to play drums without an arm, you know what I mean? So,
yeah, but if you have an issue with your middle ear, or if you have, divers that have an issue with coming up too soon, I mean, there's all kinds of things that can wreck you. And we're not just talking about your voice or your hearing, but your physical body, your knees, when you're a kid and you abuse stuff, you think, okay, great, I'll jump off a building, I'm a superhero, so no problem. and then your shit breaks, and then you need knee replacements or hip replacements. I mean, that's the stuff that catches up. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like that. It's like you really got to take care. Like for an instrumentalist, their hands, you know, they got it, and their elbows, and their, getting on stage.
You're in the studio, you're doing an album, and there's got to be a certain amount of hearing that you can have, right?
You have to hear accurately. You have to listen intently and have very, very, very careful listening skills in order to have your timing and have your delivery and the level of volume and how you deliver it, your vibrato or your not vibrato, and inflections and all that. So Brian, the way he's singing on this album is excellent. You know, he's really done a tremendous job. And, as an AC/DC fan,
is there any pitch correction? Is there any sort of manipulated pitch? Did you hear anything?
That's not what I'm hearing at all. But, I'm sure they have a lot of sophisticated work on this album. But I would say this to what Thom was saying. I'm kind of backtracking because I didn't get a chance. So I think that you're talking about a writer, an additional writer for AC/DC. Now, if we take a step back to the 80s where you had, these Desmond Child and these different writers for different bands like Kiss and other bands, Bon Jovi and all these bands, it's like that can be a real plus. Diane Warren, you get them to write a hit song, but that changes kind of the direction. Now, for a band like AC/DC, I remember when I had a girlfriend back at Lieber Krebs in the 80s, even the 70s, and she worked, AC/DC was one of the bands being managed by them, and they were not a big band there. They were trying to find their way, and they sound like they did then. They stuck to their guns, and that's probably one of their songs. I mean, they were just that kind of a band, and you don't want to change something that works like that, and especially down the road. You can't say, oh well, we should get this person, that person to be an AC/DC. But if I look back and I look at a band like Metallica, for example, and you look at Bob Rock and the success he had with Metallica, I prefer Michael Wagner. I like Master of Puppets. I mean, how do you improve on that? Well, you do similar to that, but they did improve. They did some things like, they had a bigger album with the Black Album, was a different thing. But with AC/DC, you don't really change what they're doing. That's the last thing. I think with AC/DC, they're probably a bit insulated. There's a bit of an inner circle, I would think. And, I would have liked to have seen maybe a producer. And I think Brendan O'Brien did a fantastic job, not to take away from him in any way. But I think someone like an Andy Sneap, I think that would be an interesting.
I wouldn't want Andy Sneap touching AC/DC.
Why is that?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Like I kind of liked him at the beginning, but now it's sort of just, I don't know. It's all generic now. Everything he's cranking out. I don't know. It's just not nice.
Well, he's done some pretty amazing things. But I think to Tom's point,
not to say he's bad. I'm just saying I wouldn't want him to touch AC/DC. That's all.
with a producer that might have had a different focus, just like Mutt Lange had a specific focus. He brought out. Like what I'm hearing on this album, and I wanted to talk to your point as well, Jimmy. You had a point that you had mentioned one of the songs that you love, which actually was a song when I first heard it. It was not my favorite song, and I'm just trying to look at my notes here. So, okay, Through the Mist of Time. I heard that thing the first time, and I'm like, what the hell,
Same thing.
But it's AC/DC. It's got that, those.
Here, at first listen, I really didn't love the song. Then I listened a few more times, and I wanted to better understand what was going on. So I had to listen carefully. The melody reminds me very much of a song called Working Class Man. It's an Aussie rock song by Jimmy Barnes, a big hit, a huge hit. And the melody does kind of have some flair, maybe. And I think, it was a huge anthem for Jimmy Barnes. I think Brian, he sounds just a little bit tight on that particular song. There's not a lot of movement, like Stevie Wonder movement. It's not like
he always sounds tight, though. I think that's a sound.
It sounds really like it's screechy on that song to me.
Oh, yeah, I think it screeches on every song.
Right, that's screechy. Wait, Brian Johnson sounds screechy. Alert the media.
I feel it wasn't very fluid and melodic as a song melody. So I think I was actually surprised that they put that one on the album, because I felt like, and so high in the order, because I felt like this is a great song. Like Jimmy Barnes, that's his world, and his daughter Mahalia Barnes. I mean, with all the backup vocals, the whole family sings. Everyone's musical. I mean, that's the song that I'm hearing. But hearing AC/DC do something that's even in that realm.
Neil, that's a hit song. That should have been their next video, Through the Mist of Time.
I just want to add to what Neil said, because the first time I listened to it as well, I'm like, what's this? This is just filler. going back, you got the melodic guitar line, and that's one of the things I liked about Blow Up Your Video. They tried stuffing some stuff new on it, like Two's Up. Two's Up is a fantastic track. They really shift the gears on that, and I think that's the equivalent on this album, which is Through the Mist of Time. So,
but one you didn't mention, Jimmy, one that you didn't mention, and I thought this was one of the best songs on the album, and I think it's a sleeper of a song, and I think it comes in with an approach that's straight off of Sgt. Pepper. And that is, the Beatles album. Yeah. And it was Kick You When You're Down.
Kick You When You're Down. What did I write for that?
Yeah. So it comes in with this chorus, and it's kind of repetitive to a point, which is not a surprise. But
that's more of a stop and go song from what I remember, right? It's a blues stop and go.
What's really great about that song is it has an alternating riff, on the guitar. So there's a lot of intricate, like, even though it seems like it's simplistic to some extent on the music, the guitar riffs, like, they build and they do stuff, and the music, they keep that driving rhythm, but they build and they turn back. So on that particular one, it really has some amazing alternating riff changes and excellent production. And there's another thing that's going on, the theme of Thunderstruck. So you have the first song on the album, which is which I relate to this one, Realize, which has, those backup vocals.
Yeah.
It kind of gives you that feeling like, oh, here it comes, like Thunderstruck. But then they go in a different direction, which is fine, and it sounds great. But on this one, they use that same technique on the backup vocals. So, maybe that's the Mutt Lange backups that they stack them up or whatever they do to make that happen. Sound, it has a certain sound.
Alan, who produced?
I just want to add to what Neil said, Jim, because I have that down. Kick You When You're Down. I have that as being 21st century steroid blues. Okay,
wow.
And it's also
that's what I'm calling my new album, that 21st century steroid blues.
There you go. It's also reminiscent of a Nervous Shakedown off of A Flick of the Switch for me. It's got that bluesy feel, but much more modern sounding. So it was a little bit of a surprise. I agree with Neil. So
yeah, it combines simplicity and complexity all in one for AC/DC. This is definitely more.
That's what I like about Neil. He finds the little nuances in every song that I didn't even listen to or didn't hear.
This is more the Brian Johnson era sound and modern AC/DC. This is the 2020 AC/DC sound. This song to me.
What about Neil?
Like Satellite Blues off of Black Ice,
What about the plucking on Witch's Spell? Like, you hear that sort of Sink the Pink, the guitar. What do they call it? Yeah. It's that plucking there. Is that what they call it? Is that they call it? Guitar
a lot of people. They call it AC/DC.
A lot of people are going to love Witch's Spell. I think that's a fantastic song. It's one of the outstanding tracks on the album.
It is.
I think the riff on that one has the Thunderstruck vibe and approach, but it's not Thunderstruck. But it has, it kind of gives you an impression for a moment that drives you that direction until it hits the pre-chorus and the chorus. So it's something in that formula, in that, brilliant buildup of the guitars.
Okay.
And then there's no doubt one of the holdover riffs from the Malcolm Young, work. I feel like that came from Malcolm, and it's a definite favorite for me. So, I mean, that's a win on that one.
It sounds like a leftover for Rock or Bust, a song maybe that didn't make that album. That's what it sounds like for me. So it's for me, it's one of the, I find it's one of the weakest tracks that I enjoyed the least. So
Witch's Spell?
Yeah.
I thought it was one of my favorite tracks. I found Kick You When You're Down. I didn't enjoy that too much, but maybe everybody sees something else. Alan, I want to ask you this. And I've been dying to ask you this. From these two albums, is it maybe this way? No, wait, this way. Whatever way. Do you prefer this new album over the last two albums? I know you like.
Yeah, you asked me that earlier. Yeah. The answer is yes.
Okay, all right. I know Alan's a huge fan. Alan's a huge fan of AC/DC. I know all you guys too. I know Neil, you actually did a cover song on your first solo album. Which one was it?
Touch Too Much.
Touch Too Much. Yeah.
Nice.
And I know Neil does a lot of it. You do the Bon Scott tribute, right, in L.A. And
right here.
Man, oh man,
Brian Tichy.
You guys, if you haven't
Brian
heard
Tichy
Neil
as
Turbin,
well.
If you haven't heard Neil Turbin sing AC/DC, please go Google Neil Turbin AC/DC. He does a phenomenal job, man.
Try sometimes.
Yeah. Did you do Thunderstruck too?
I did it with an orchestra.
That's awesome.
It was a challenge. That's some high stuff. But and Brian, given AC/DC all the the credit in the world. I mean, talk about a band that's like a cat that has 9 lives. I mean, you know, after your singer dies and you have a great album and your band's finally, you know, breaking through with Highway to Hell, then all of a sudden, what do you do? It's kind of like, almost reminds me of Ozzy Osbourne when he left Black Sabbath with Never Say Die. I think it was Never Say Die was the last one he did before he left, and then Dio came in. But it's like,
how do you recover? How do you recover? Not only did they recover, they freaking blew the roof.
Who would have thought that Ozzy, with all the drugs and all the craziness and all the, you know, stuff.
Yeah, Alan, show us your little tour manual there. Your tool.
He finds Randy Rhoads and Bob Daisley.
Two words: Max Norman.
Yeah.
And the drummer from Uriah Heep, and I mean, unbelievable.
Lee Kerslake, amazing.
I mean, Lee Kerslake, and unbelievable that, I mean, to me, it's like you came out of Black Sabbath, but the 2 Blizzard of Oz albums with that lineup, I mean, holy smokes! Like, how do you? So
I mean, to me, as a like, honestly, I would take those 2 records, and this is probably sacrilegious to say, over anything in the Black Sabbath catalog. I love Black Sabbath.
With this?
But those 2, that heavy metal,
We're going to a good place. This is great conversation.
Guys, this is the show here. Look at.
If you look at AC/DC and you love the Bond era, I mean, there was Dave Evans era, okay? And Dave did.
Dave Evans, yes.
Dave did some great stuff with AC/DC. I had the pleasure of touring with him last year, and Dave, great guy, and he's still doing it. He's touring over there, and I think he's in Latin America right now. Somehow they're touring or playing some gigs. But, you know, I think that if you love the Bon Scott era, after Back in Black, it's pretty hard to not. I mean, how do you can love Bon Scott, but how do you just you can't ignore, you can't. It's undeniable. Back in Black. I mean, and then For Those About to Rock. So I mean, they really came out with some. It's much like the Ozzy.
Me and Alan took apart Back in Black just a month ago. We just took the whole album apart, you know, and yeah.
And the other crazy thing about that triumph that they had after Bond passed away, and with Brian, is that Bond was such a distinctive singer, and they had such a distinctive band. Like a lot of bands, it's not easy, but it's easier to replace a singer. I mean, something as specific and kind of in left field as AC/DC was, to find a similar styled singer and be able to.
You okay? All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, to Tom's point, I mean, it's exactly the case. I mean, trying to replace someone like a Steve Perry, or trying to replace someone like a Steve Walsh or you know, Lou Gramm. I mean, yeah, they got YouTube singers and so forth, and yeah, they do a pretty darn good job. But it's like, I'm sorry, but for me, there's only one Lou Gramm and there's only one Steve Perry.
Show us your treat there, Neil. Show us your treat. Show us your box.
Yeah, so I'll tell you a quick AC/DC story. So, I mean, there's a lot of them, but I'll tell you one specific one. So I just wanted to say, I really love the AC/DC guitar sound. This is both, you know, the amazing playing by Malcolm, who holds the fort down, and the rest of the rhythm section, and Angus Young, of course. And I'm sure, you know, many people will agree. But the reason I bring that up is they have a secret weapon, okay? And everybody may not be aware. And there's a company that's called Solo Dallas. And it happens to be a friend of mine that I met through a young guitar player, Taj Farrant, who is out of Australia. And he actually, I played with him. He was out here. He's got, you know, major management and label, and he just played with Carlos Santana, and he played with Rob Thomas and Kiss. As a matter of fact, they invited him to at the show that I did with him at the Viper Room. One of the guys from the Kiss crew was there, and he invited him to come to Kiss rehearsal, and he played with Kiss. So anyway, he plays it through one of these things, and I wanted to share this with you. So this is the secret weapon.
There it is.
This is a secret weapon. I'll just unplug some cables here. Okay, this is called the EX Tower.
Okay, pull it back. You're getting a bleed there.
This is the
you're getting Back in Black again.
Yeah.
Can I just say, Neil, that whole green screen black, it makes me feel like I'm on an acid trip. I feel like I'm watching Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. I'm like, his hair is alive.
Watch what happens.
Hey,
it's gone. It's back.
So that's Angus's Young.
This is so Angus plays with 2 of these in his rig, And this is something that gives you a very distinctive tone. And it's pretty much this and some vintage Marshalls, I'm sure.
Is it like a noise gate or something?
No. So this particular, this unit here, it's called, I'll show you the image on it. It's called the Schaefer Replica. So there's a company that was by Ken Schaefer out of New York. They did the Schaefer Vega diversity wireless system. So people like Roger Waters played it in the 70s, Ace Frehley, Thin Lizzy, Scott Gorham, maybe Brian Robertson, maybe Gary Moore. I'm not sure about exactly who in Lizzy, but they had it. Also, you're talking about, Rolling Stones were playing through it. And you look back at some of the guitar sounds. So what this thing was, this was actually a wireless system. And this was the receiver unit. So what happened is the wireless had an optical filter. So it's almost like a noise gate of sorts. And then you have a gain and a boost. So that's where, Angus is playing, or Malcolm is playing those SGs or the Gretsch that Malcolm would play. And you'd have just a little bit of this sound. And, every guitar player that loves AC/DC, I mean, we're all trying to get the sound, right? And that's really, this unit here is not a cheap one. Okay. This is pricey, but the other one that they make, I mean, I play a bunch of different ones. This one here is the Schaefer Replica Storm pedal. This one's about $200. And I can tell you it's the best pedal that I've ever played through. And I have a TS-808.
You're losing me here.
Ibanez, like Stevie Ray Vaughan, an original one.
I get it.
I really love it. And I'm not trying to sound like Angus, but the thing is, or AC/DC, but the thing is that it really gives, a boost. You can play an acoustic guitar through this thing and it boosts the signal practically 40 dB. So it's a really amazing product. But what's cool about it is that is what was used on this album.
Oh, okay.
And
there's
also,
the tie-in. There is the tie-in. I see the tie-in there.
Payoff.
And it was used on Back in Black and on Highway to Hell.
All right.
So, I mean,
good story.
That guitar sound to me is, that's a masterpiece. I mean, and it's a masterpiece. And I think they figured it out and they found it. And this is back in the 70s. So, I mean, kudos to knowing that. And then a guy named Phil Oliveri from Italy, who's in the US, and I think he's in Florida right now. So he makes these products. A company called Solo Dallas, and it's called the EX Tower and Storm, and it's a Schaefer replica. So I mean, people know about it. I'm sure a lot of folks out there are very aware about it. And Phil's at NAMM when they have the NAMM convention again, hopefully soon. And
all right. Well, we're gonna wrap it up. That's great stuff, Neil. Thank you for that. I'm sure there's the guitar enthusiasts will, really appreciate that. That's very cool. Thom, last words?
Last words. Go check out our cover of Riff Raff with Dave Lombardo and Jason McMaster and buy our record next week. Boom.
Let me ask you something for that cover art. Show me that cover art there.
It's like On Through the Night, Def Leppard. It looks like.
Did you have to get the licensing for that?
No, I mean, look, it's parody. It's not, I mean, it's totally different elements. I mean, if you look at it, it's got a sticker, so it's hard to see. But I mean, if you look at it, I mean, it's a totally different, look, it's parody, it's homage, I mean, technically it's the same basic concept. But if you look at it, it's a totally different truck. It's a modern truck. It's a totally different.
Bass? No, it's a guitar.
It's a bass. It's a bass in the back. Yeah, it's David's bass. It's David's Jackson bass in the back.
Oh, it is?
But it's
yeah,
it is. It's David's Jackson bass. And it's a totally different moon, and that's kind of care with the concept.
I like the different moon.
Yeah, it is, but it is. It's a totally different. It's a photorealistic interpretation. The original cover is a painting, and it's not very detailed. This is like a photorealistic, modernized interpretation of it. Obviously, with David's bass in the back of the truck.
It's a nice picture. It's a really nice, cool picture.
It is. Yeah. Melody Myers, our designer, who does all that. And I was talking to David when we decided to do Wasted. It was part of the same call. We were like, we have to do a Def Leppard song. What should we do? And obviously, I love On Through the Night, but I'm a pyromania, hysteria guy. But we kind of went back and forth on a few things, and we just came to the obvious choice of Wasted. And I said, it'd be really fun. We should do it's a cover record. What do you do for the cover of a cover record? We covered the cover. So I'm like, it'd be really fun to do for the cover. We should do like a parody of the On Through the Night cover, but put your Jackson bass in the back of the truck instead of the Les Paul that's on the Def Leppard cover, and we both just fell in love, and I hit up Melody, and she pulled it off, and that's a great thing about her. I come up with these ridiculous ideas, and she just somehow does it, and it floors me every time. But I didn't know if we could even physically do it. I mean, the original one's like a painting, but she did it. And again, it's a little more. Again, if you look at it close, I mean, again, it's an updated truck. It's a modern semi. Everything's a little updated more. But again, it's just an homage, man. Def Leppard was so important to me and David. I mean, look, Def Leppard is what inspired, Def Leppard being so young in that era was what inspired David to move to LA and join Megadeth. He was like, look, Def Leppard's young and they're doing it. I can do this too. And that is literally, Rick Allen was like 16 years old or something. That's what inspired David to go and move to LA and join Megadeth. And the fun.
Speaking of Def Leppard, I wish they brought back Pete Willis.
I actually met Pete Willis.
You did?
There you go.
Where'd you meet him?
I was at Ozzy. I was when I met Randy Rose at the Ozzy Osbourne show at Nassau Coliseum when they played, in the '80s, first time, and it was Ozzy, Joe Perry Project, and Def Leppard.
And
I think it was Joe Perry, and Joe Perry had a really bad sound, if I'm thinking of the right lineup. But Def Leppard, I mentioned Lieber Krebs, and my ex-girlfriend at the time, worked there, and so she brought me backstage to Def Leppard, and I'm sitting there on their couch, and then they walk in. Like, who's this guy sitting on our couch in our dressing room, eating our food and drinking our beer? And they had the best looking girlfriends ever. I mean, unbelievable. It's like they must have robbed a Playboy building or something. Pretty much that's what was back there. Yeah. But I was just like, I was 16 or something. I was like, man, what am I doing back here?
Yeah.
But it was cool.
I'd like to interview Pete Willis. I don't know where he is.
Yeah, I mean, bringing on the heartache and heartbreak and all that amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And,
I'm more of a high and dry guy.
The band was on
Pete
fire.
Willis.
And they were that was like the pinnacle moment of like they're on fire and they're rising up. But then of course Pyromania and that whole thing, that was just
Pete Willis. Pete Willis. I mean, he co-wrote Photograph. I mean, he was essential in that album. Then they fired him.
Hey, Jimmy, Alan, and Tom, I just wanted to kind of give you some of my notes from the other songs. I think it's something that's valuable because I did dig in, and I just wanted to see what you guys thought about this. I'll just kind of fire it off.
Toss it out there.
Yeah, so I'll do it in order because I have, because people are going to listen to the album and they're going to want to listen back to our, our interview here. And, so Realize, right? That song, you liked it. And
I liked it. Thumbs up for me. Here you go. Right here, right here. Boom.
So Thunderstruck backing vocal feel at the beginning and throughout the song, uses that Mutt Lange technique. And then the song builds. To me, it's like an AC/DC ball breaker MTV era sound. And that's at least what I'm hearing. And then the guitar solo is also reminiscent of that Fly in the Wall era. And then I thought it was really interesting on the song Rejection, because I'm always listening, like, what are the influences in these songs? So
Can I just add, Neil, I just want to add to what your comments on Realize before you go to the next song. One of the things I liked, there was some harmonizing with Angus's guitar with Brian's vocal just before the pre-chorus, which is something you never heard of before in any AC/DC album. So that's another encouraging sign that they're trying something new. I like that. You can just hear it just a little bit layered in, just kind of harmonizing with the vocals. So.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this review, this is the nuts and bolts that differentiate, because we're talking about actual inflections or things that we're noticing. And I think Rejection, Get It Hot off of Highway to Hell, I think it was, and Gone Shootin', that's another kind of
deep track,
sleeper track. It kind of got that vibe, or there's a feeling, not necessarily exactly the same, but Get It Hot is pretty much what I'm getting out of that. And then I like the 70s AC/DC with Bon Scott. I mean, Tom was talking about that. It's undeniable, so amazing. And I can hear this riff and the song being a bonus track on If You Want Blood, or maybe the Powerage era or Highway to Hell. And especially the riff and the way the lead guitars interact with the vocals on this song. So, you're talking about Realize, Alan, where the guitar and Angus's guitar and the vocals are interacting. Same thing on Rejection.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 in a row. And then Shot in the, I don't know if anyone had any comments on that one.
I just had the vocals. They're doubling up on the vocals there, like you said. So that's something you don't hear very often. And also the bass. The bass is just driving it right through, right? You got the stop and go kind of riff but the bass continues right through. So it's great. And
And we
Cliff's
should have
such a
added
great
Cliff
bass
Williams, who
player.
actually left the band, retired, and then he just came back for this. So that was another member that was gone that came back, right?
Yeah, Cliff and Phil, they both know what to do. I mean, that's why Angus probably made the phone call, because he knew what he was looking for. I think Shot in the Dark, obviously the first single and video, I love the massive guitar riff. It reminds me of Have a Drink on Me. And also a little bit
actually,
of
Evil Walks. I would say it's a sped up version of Evil Walks. Now, if you listen to the melody of Evil Walks, I'm not going to sing it, but and you put that melody on. But then again, it's close. I mean, everything in AC/DC is close, right?
And then it circles back to what Thom was saying about maybe, you know, a different writer, different producer. So I like the melodies, but the song title makes me think of Ozzy and Jakey Lee, who had a huge hit with A Shot in the Dark.
Well, Phil Soussan, eh? Wasn't it Phil Soussan who wrote it?
I played with Phil before. Yeah, he's a great guy. And I think if they changed the lyric around and called it A Walk in the Park, and they used the other part of the lyric and flipped it, to me, that would have been the kicker. But, it is what it is. But I think on the backing vocals on this song, Shot in the Dark, here's where I wanted to say the Mutt Lange influence. Def Leppard Pyromania on the backing vocals, big time. I mean, on this particular song, on the other songs, maybe it sounds more like an AC/DC backup, but on this one, it sounds like you got Def Leppard in the room.
Okay. And pick one or two more, because I actually have to run. And
I have Demon Fire. Sounds like a recycled riff. Caught with Your Pants Down from Ball Breaker.
But you know what's I find, and Neil, to your point here, like actually for Neil, he never sings in his chest voice. He always sings in a head voice falsetto. Like, I mean, for God's sakes, I mean, he could sing a couple of songs in his chest voice. I don't know why he always does that.
Well, is that Brian? Brian singing the low voice, because I said in my notes I like the second voice.
Brian.
I like the second voice. It sounds like another person I never heard before.
That's Brian. He never sings. He always never sings in his chest voice.
They need to use that. He needs to use that more.
Exactly. That's my point.
I know, it's interesting, right? It's interesting.
It's fantastic. And
I think 99% of his singing is in his falsetto, is his head voice. 99% of it. I don't think he ever sings in his.
It'd be great to hear him do more with that.
Exactly.
And I like the ZZ Top feeling. It's like a ZZ Top kind of feeling with that voice in there, and then the bad boy boogie feel. And I think this song is Demon's Fire. It's an attention grabber. It's a fast, pushing you song, and it brings you into the song. Definitely a good choice for a single.
Definitely one of my favorites. A stand up for me on the record for sure.
Yeah, it's the rhythm section. They're so tight on that song.
It's like beating around the bush. And I wish they would have done more fast songs like this one in this style. And then I'm going to zip past it and say Wild Reputation. That one, Thom had mentioned rock and roll ain't noise pollution, I think. And that's what I got out of this one. That's the one I heard in this song. And, reusing the secondary vocal, it's, that second vocal of the lower voice of Brian, that's in this song as well. And it's pretty much in typical AC/DC fashion. It didn't, like a filler song. I think the next one, No Man's Land, that one's really interesting. And here's why. Reminds me of Led Zeppelin 3. Celebration Day on guitars, a slow version of it, and Brawny or Stomp.
You know what I wrote for that song?
The vocal melody.
Guess what I wrote for that song? Boring.
No,
Robert Plant.
I wrote boring. Just one word, boring.
If you don't hear the Robert Plant vocal influence and the Jimmy Page influence on that song, I mean, I'm hearing that.
Okay.
So, and then
they try something.
You know
new
what? Everybody takes away something else, and that's the beauty of it, right?
Systems Down, T-Rex, Bang a Gong drum beat right at the beginning.
I did like Systems Down. That was a great song.
And then it goes into a typical AC/DC groove and vocal delivery in the beginting, but then that's when it changes into the pre-chorus and chorus. It really lifts it up. I think this is a real representation of AC/DC today. And I think that song, I think Systems Down should be a single. Money Shot, rock till you drop, backing vocals maybe.
I like that.
Code Red.
You know what I wrote for Code Red? Yawn.
Okay. I had Beating Around the Bush. I that song I found reminiscent of Beating Around the Bush.
Okay. So Code Red, the guitar opens with a riff that's kind of reminiscent of Back in Black feel to it, sort of, kind of. And then it goes into a drum beat that reminds me, get this one, Thom might like it, of a halftime GNR Mr. Brownstone.
Nice.
Along with the guitar riff and the vocal delivery. The vocal delivery is the key, where it's doing this kind of fast, fast delivery, and the drum beat is, in halftime. So like maybe there's some type of a GNR, Axl influence on that song.
That's what I like about Neil Turbin. I'll tell you, he picks up on everything. Here I am using one word to describe things, and it's like he picks up on everything.
And he's like the hi-hat cymbal on the fourth bar of the second chorus.
Neil knows
is really reminiscent of.
He knows
Van
what
Halen
pedals they're using.
Not quite, but
I'm just just yawn.
And I'm in here like, it sounds like fucking AC/DC.
Yeah. If you take Steven Adler's third bar on
That's really
Mr.
good,
Brownstone and you slow it down the halftime.
Neil, you're brilliant.
That's right on.
You're brilliant.
AC/DC took the time and the care to be meticulous about crafting.
And you know what you're saying, Neil? People will appreciate the album more by hearing what you said about it. They'll say, you know what? I didn't see that.
Was detailed and meticulous and very.
I feel so stupid compared to you. Like,
no, I think it's
one word. Boring.
You're smart. I'm just trying to catch up. So, as far as this album, I mean, this is something that is an AC/DC fan's wet dream. I mean, we thought AC/DC was done and dusted, and it's not. It's back. AC/DC is back in black times 2020. I mean,
and so is Neil Turbin. He is also back in black.
Yes.
Yeah,
great, Neil.
It's actually true.
It's true.
That's a great review, Neil. We thank you for that. That's fantastic stuff.
Yeah. And you know what? I would have never caught any of that.
Just to go what Jimmy said earlier, I got them all here. Of course, when Brian Johnson joined AC/DC, he didn't want anybody buying these, right? This is his old band Geordie that they.
God, you actually have those.
They even use the
AC/DC
font, the same font with the lightning bolt, right? But on this copy, there's House of the Rising Sun, which is a fantastic cover that Brian Johnson does. And he sings in his lower register.
Yeah, and that's what I liked about that stuff. He sings a little different on that. It was interesting when I found those and they kind of became widely available on the internet, and I went back and listened to those. It was interesting to hear all these voicings that Brian has, because in AC/DC, he has one. You know what I mean?
Now you gave me something I need to go listen to also. Thanks for that, Alan. And, and Jimmy, you had mentioned a couple of things real quick. And I know you got to go, but I was going to say System of a Down. We're not going to review them necessarily, but you told me about their new songs. And I just wanted to say, I checked it out and I was very pleasantly surprised on how excellent it was. I mean, I've seen them live.
Yeah.
The band sounds like, they haven't missed a beat, and very meaningful songs for a meaningful cause. And, obviously, there's a lot of shite going on in the world.
It's nice with all the turmoil in that band. And I know some of the guys in the band kind of personally. It's nice to see them rise above all of it and all of their politics and all of their stuff to come together for Armenia, which has always been a very important cause. The recognizing the genocide and now again the current situations there. I mean, so again, it's always been a very important cause for them. So it's great to see them rise above all the little weird internal band shit to go and be able to record some new material and just kind of throw it out of nowhere. I mean, good for them. They believe in what they believe in, and they
Alan, you got a comment. House of the Rising Sun. And so for people who don't know, that was a cover, right, from Geordie? Back in the Geordie days?
That was a cover from the Animals, and Animals did get from
No, yeah, that's what I meant.
Right?
That's what I meant. Yeah.
But it was recorded with Geordie, I would imagine so.
All right,
House of the Rising Sun, I actually sang with my soul band, Screaming Soul Demon, but that song is actually originally written like early 1900s. I mean, it's actually something that the Animals redid.
Yeah, it's like an old spiritual.
So it's a cover of a cover.
Of a cover.
One of those crazy. I didn't know that. It was back in the what? Back in the 1800s?
No, well, it's
early 1900s.
So I think it was like a folk song.
They changed the lyrics. They changed it around a little bit, but I mean, the Animals did put a stamp on it. Way.
Kind of like a cover of a cover of a cover of a cover. There you go. No cover.
Love the irony. Love the irony.
And then call it.
I hope
no
you're not going to come up with Neighbor
cover.
of the Beast
Exactly.
next. Neighbor of the Beast.
It only works because I find it works because it's called No Cover.
Well, that was the idea. It is. It's called No Cover, and it's just 2 CDs of. Dude, this thing is great, man. We have Dave Lombardo on here, Charlie Benante, Doro Pesch, Frank and Troy from Tesla, Mark Slaughter, Dirk Verburen, Chuck Beeler, Jimmy DeGrasso, Andrew Freeman from Last in Line. I mean, we have Todd Kearns. We have so many great guys, and obviously David and Bumblefoot and our band and our guitar player Andy Martinelli.
How about Thom?
And Thom, you're doing the vocals.
I am on there. On like 15 of the 19 songs, Andrew Freeman sings on one, Todd Kern sings on one, Jason McMaster's. I let him kind of do the lead on Riff Raff because, again, when I sing AC/DC, it sounds like Brian Johnson. So I sing that, and it sounded like Brian Johnson, and then Jason sang it. And Jason McMaster, I love him. He's a great guy. He's we're both very nerdy music fans. Every time I call him, we just kind of nerd out about AC/DC and Judas Priest. And,
just like our show.
Exactly. Like Jason would fit right in this round table.
We'll get Jason next time.
We will.
Fantastic.
All right, guys. I think that's it. I think we've covered everything and more, and I appreciate everybody's time. Thom,
unless you want to talk about Ozzy some more. I mean, I'm always down for that.
I got all kinds of
Ozzy just wants to play his last shows. I mean, it'd be nice.
What about
next
this?
time?
Is this
Next
a great
time
album
The
cover or what?
benefits of having Sharon Osbourne as your manager.
I would say this is my favorite album cover. Look at this. Look at this beautiful BOC. Isn't that a beautiful album cover?
It is.
I was there when they filmed the movie Godzilla at the NASA Coliseum in Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell.
No, but you know what? Godzilla has never actually, that song that they wrote, their song has never actually appeared in a Godzilla movie. Their original song. So what's up with that? That's all I'm going to say.
I don't know.
All right, Thom, thanks, man.
Good news.
Elson
AC/DC's
Coffee,
got a
Elson
new
Coffee
album
pickup.
coming out soon. Everybody go out and buy it and download
And
it.
it sounds like AC/DC.
And it sounds like AC/DC.
And Neil, what do you got going before we let you go?
You know, I'm just working on writing, recording, doing some, acoustic unplugged type performances since I have multiple genres. I have my solo band.
Is there a live stream?
That I'm doing. I'll let you know on that. And then also with my solo band, Neil Turbin East Los, we're working on, re-recording the first album and some of the other recordings that didn't come out with me, but they'll come out, and the band sounds great. And, it's a good time to be working on stuff. If you can't be out there in front of people, you could be in the studio recording and rocking.
That's it. One more thing I actually want to plug. We're doing
Always
some
be
shows
rocking.
next week. We are doing a live stream, CD release Sunday the 22nd. It hasn't officially been announced yet, but it will be this week. So we're going to do a cool little live stream the 22nd. So keep your eyes
You've heard it
peeled
first
for that.
here on the Metal Voice.
That's right. You know what? And this was a nice little Saturday chat. That's what it
was.
was.
Thank you.
It was a Saturday
Thank you,
chat,
guys.
chit chat, talking AC/DC, and everybody yourself. Have yourself a great Saturday night.
Awesome. Thank you.
Power
Thanks
up.
a lot, guys. Thanks a lot.
Power
Great
up.
show.
Power up.
Anvil.